Hi, this is Aries, once again reading number 6, volume 1, and we are on chapter 4. We had Shion had just escaped whatever incarceration with Nezumi in tow. Um, we are on a very interesting point. I don't know how much I can record at a time, so I'm gonna try to whip this out. Get this out fast. I don't know. I'm gonna try to read it. Because there's stuff going on in the house. And also, if you hear rain noises, that's what it is. It's raining. It's been raining for the past couple of days. It's great. Yeah. We need rain. Okay. Anyway, let's get into it. Sorry, I might be a little distracted today. I have like an eye thing. It's like every time I blink, it's really distracting. So I might just be a bit distracted today. But hopefully, we can get through at least a bit of this in one sitting. Alright. Chapter 4 of Fathomless Terror. The flow of sewage was faster and deeper than what Shion had expected. Indiscernible objects floated past his face. Once in a while, something would cling to his goggles and block his vision. Ugh, disgusting. He could smell an odor unlike anything he had smelled before. Amidst the overarching smell of rot was a mix of sickly sweet scents and harsh odors that stung the nose. In this brownish murk, he could barely follow Nezumi, who swam in front of him. And more than anything, it was hard to breathe. His heart thudded and his chest strained painfully. Nezumi drifted to the side and pointed at a handle that was attached to the wall. Shion reached out and grabbed it. Together they turned and pulled as hard as they could. A round opening appeared. He couldn't breathe. He was at his limit. His consciousness was fading away. The next instant, he was sucked into the hole. He was pulled along, pushed up, and thrown out on dry land. His body was slammed ashore, and he could feel the shock from it tingle to his toes. But he no longer felt like he had a wet cloth over his face. He could breathe. He felt a momentary relief, and then was overcome with a fit of coughing. He felt nauseous, and the inside of his mouth felt sticky. Shion yanked off his goggles and closed his eyes. For several moments, he couldn't move. It's a little early for bedtime, Nezumi quipped, but his breathing was labored as well. Shion opened his eyes and saw a bare concrete surface. Where are we? In the sewage pipes. Artifacts of the 20th century. Maybe not artifacts, since they're still being used. Nezumi shook his head vigorously from side to side. Water droplets flew from his hair. When the amount of sewage goes over capacity, they open the door back there to flush it down these pipes. They flush the sewage down here? Without filtering it? Yep. Your beloved city tends to do that sometimes. Where does it go? The West Block? So they flush dirty water? How could they? Shion was at a loss for words. Nezumi stood up. The West Block isn't part of the city to the West Block isn't part of the city to him. It's in the margins. He probably only sees this place as some kind of garbage dump. He? Nezumi was standing still, staring unblinkingly before him. At the end of his gaze was the sewage outlet that they had just been washed out of. Sewage still trickled in thin streams across the concrete. Let's go. Nezumi bent down to scoop up the mouse scurrying about his feet, and turned his back to Shion. Shion stood up hastily. He still felt nauseous, but he had some strength left in his legs to stand. I still have enough strength. It'll last me. I'll be all right. Shion mentally encouraged himself. On Nezumi's shoulder, the mouse that had been their navigator cheeped amiably. Ah! Shion brought a hand to his neck. He felt something faintly odd. On the base of his neck, there was a small part that felt numb. Shion felt the area with his fingers. There was a pea-sized blister growing, and it was itchy. I don't like this. I can feel it, and I don't like it, and I know where this is going. Ooh, okay. Guard your necks. There was a pea-sized blister growing, and it was itchy. He scratched it lightly. A chill wind blew through the center of his body. Shion could feel his heart contract. This gesture, scratching the neck, he had seen someone do this before. Yamase-san. Yamase's image floated up clearly in Shion's mind, pouring coffee, making conversation, always scratching his neck throughout. Don't tell me. Nezumi turned around. What's wrong? No, nothing. You better not be whining that you can't walk anymore. On the contrary, said Shion, I could do with a little more exercise. Want me to piggyback you while I'm at it? Nice of you to offer, but no thanks. The mouse on his shoulder was chirping. Shion walked faster to catch up with Nezumi. He was thinking too much. It was just a blister. The scrape on his arm and his bruised body were much worse than this. It was a blister, for goodness sake. Just a blister. Why the serious face? Missing your mama? My mother, Shion murmured. Nezumi, do you think I'll be able to get in touch with her? Forget about it. How are you so sure? You know well enough. Right now, your house is probably being searched top to bottom by the security bureau, down to the contents of your garbage can. Unless you have telepathic powers, there's no way you can get in touch with her. I guess you're right. I'm sorry, Mom. He could only apologize. I'm safe. I'm alive. So please. He didn't want her to despair. He didn't want her to grieve. Bullshit. Nezumi spat. What is? You. You're full of it. It was the first time Shion had been insulted to his face. What do you mean? What I'm saying is that you're full of bullshit for carrying this baggage, this crap, like it's the most precious thing in the world. Nezumi narrowed his eyes and fixed Shion with a hard gaze. His eyes were piercing and filled with an emotion almost leaning toward animosity. Shion opened his mouth to question him further, but Nezumi had suddenly begun to scale the wall. Upon a more careful look, Shion could see that there was a rusted metal ladder fixed to it. When he emerged at the top, he was greeted with an evening sky. He was above ground again. The sky was painted vividly in the colors of the sunset, and a chilly air settled upon him. The place looked like an entrance to the west block. In the distance, the outer walls of No.6 glittered as it reflected the setting sun. Because of the west block's lower elevation, No.6 loomed even larger before them. It was breathtaking to see the sprawling city encircled by shining walls. Shion even thought there was a sort of godly air about it. Nezumi began to walk in the opposite direction. They emerged from the sparse wood and soon came upon the ruins of a house. There was a smoke rising out of it, and voices could be heard inside. Are there people living in there? Lots of them, Nezumi replied. Past the ruined house were a row of several barracks. This way. Shion was dragged by the arm to another ruins of the building. This one looked like it had been a warehouse before. The building had been quite spacious, but half of it had crumbled away into rubble. We're going underground again. Nezumi pressed a section of the wall, and it suddenly moved aside to let them through. Beyond there was a flight of stairs made of bare concrete, like those of the sewage tunnels. The mouse bounded down the stairs. At the foot of them was a door. Inside, it was pitch black. There was a click, and the room was bathed in dim light. Shion caught his breath and was rooted to the spot. There were mounds and mounds of books, piled precariously high. Most of the room was buried in them. Are all of these books? Do they look like food to you? I've never seen this many. Let me guess. You've only read off electronic paper before. Yeah, well, not really, but wow, this is amazing. And to take another guess, you've probably never read Molière, Racine, or Shakespeare before. I know those. Readers note, I know those names. Of course I do. And you probably don't know anything about Chinese classics or myths of the Aztecs. I don't. Shion didn't argue otherwise. He was too overwhelmed. Then what do you know? Nezumi asked, running a hand through his wet hair. Huh? What have you studied up until now? Systematic knowledge, frontline technology, how to decode specialized scholarly papers, and what else? A lot else, Xian replied indignantly. Like what? How to bake bread, how to make coffee, park maintenance and cleaning. Not to mention, now I know how to scuba dive in sewage. You forgot how to reject someone when she asks you. Shut up! Oh my god. You forgot how to reject someone when she asks you to have sex and you've only ever thought of her as a friend. You didn't do a great job at it. Oh, what the fuck? You didn't do a great job at it, though. Since Shion raised his chin defiantly and glared at the pair of gray eyes. If you have time to make fun of me, will you let me wash up? I'm first. Nezumi pulled a towel from in between some books and tossed it at Shion. Don't be mad, he said. What I actually meant is that you've come pretty far since 4 years ago. You've learned a lot more useful things other than how to make cocoa. I'm humbled by your kind compliments. Hey, really, don't be mad. Nezumi disappeared into the pile of books. Momentarily, Shion could hear the muffled sounds of a shower. He took a good look around the room. There were bookshelves on every side, and they were filled to bursting with books. They didn't look like they were sorted in any order, and books of all sizes were shoved haphazardly into open spaces on the shelves. Shion felt like them. Sorry, Shion felt from them the same kind of hustle and bustle he would from a crowded train station. The faded carpet looked like it had once been some shade of green, and it was also covered in piles of books. Nestled among them was a bed. There were no windows, there was no kitchen, and no signs of other furniture. Cheap, cheap. A mouse squeaked at him from atop a book. That was so clever. Are you kidding me? That was so. That was. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I love that. Okay. Shion took the book in his hands and flipped open to a page. He smelled the faint scent of paper. He remembered, long ago, he had smelled the same thing. He was sitting on top of something soft and warm. His memory wavered. He couldn't remember it well. The mouse scurried up on his shoulder. It twitched its whiskers and chirruped persistently. You want me to read this? Cheep, cheep. There was a bookmark in the middle of the book. Shion turned to it and began to read aloud. Here's the smell of the blood, still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Oh, oh, oh. What a sigh is there. The heart is sorely charged. I would not have such a heart in my bosom for the dignity of the whole body. Another small mouse had appeared at Shion's feet. It had charming grape-colored eyes. The brown mouse that had been sitting on the book nodded its head vigorously, as if to urge him on. To bed, to bed. There's knocking at the gate. Come, 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 come. Give me your hand. What's done cannot be undone. To bed, to bed, to bed. Shion felt a presence behind him and turned around. Nezumi stood with a towel hanging around his neck. He gave a deep bow. To the showers, if it so pleases your majesty. Your change of adornments awaits you here. Nezumi, this book. It's Shakespeare. Macbeth. Ever heard of it? Only the title. I figured as much. Are all these books classics? Nay, your majesty. We also have introductory books to ecology and scientific journals to please your fancy. Are these all your books? Is it interrogation time again? Nezumi said exasperatedly. Run along and take a shower, and then I'll give you something to eat. He ended abruptly, and obstinately, I know that word, and obstinately turned his head aside. The shower was old, and it was difficult to control the temperature. The flow was punctuated with bursts of frigid water, but for Shion, it still felt nice. It had been a long time since he enjoyed a shower this much. The itch on his neck had miraculously disappeared as well. I'm alive. I've been saved. Shion thought to himself as he let the hot water run over his body. He didn't know about tomorrow, but he was alive right now and was well enough to take this shower. I didn't thank him yet. He had been rescued, and Nezumi had risked his life to save him, but not a single word of gratitude had escaped his lips so far. Realization set in. Soon after exiting the bathroom, one of the mice came scampering up to him again. He's taken a huge liking to your reading. Nezumi was stirring something in a pot over the kerosene heater. There was steam rising from it, and it gave the room a feeling of homey warmth. Oh, Shion suddenly exclaimed. He remembered now what was behind the nostalgia and warmth he felt when he opened the book. What? What are you shouting for? No, I just remembered. A long time ago, my mother used to read to me. She read Macbeth to you? Of course not. I was really young then. I remember sitting on Mother's lap and she'd read to me. What kind of story was it again? The page was being turned slowly. Karn's voice echoed in his ears, first high, then low, subdued, then full of strength. He could feel the warmth of her body. He could smell the scent of paper. You're going to destroy yourself, said Nezumi quietly. His voice was cold. What? I've said this before. Carry all this useless baggage, and one day it'll be the end of you. It'll weigh you down until it squashes you flat. Useless? Like what? Memories. Attachments to being a citizen of No.6. Your comfortable life, your overestimation of your own skills, your misconceptions of being some kind of chosen one, pride. The list goes on forever. But the worst is your mother. Do you have some sort of Oedipus complex? If you're being haunted by your mother that much, goodness knows what you're going to do next. Maybe you'll start saying you want to go back to the city to see your dearest mama. It had touched a nerve. Is it a useless thing to think about my parents? Answered Shion tensely. I know what kind of situation I'm in right now, and I know there's no way in getting in contact with my mother, but I'm free to think about her at least. That's not something for you to say anything about. Throw it away. Nezumi's voice had turned even icier, and had almost a metallic ring to it. Throw away useless feelings like those. Why are you saying? Shion said in disbelief. Because they're dangerous. My feelings? Dangerous? Back there, you threw away your citizenship card because it was a danger to us. So are feelings for other people. You get dragged around, pulled this way and that, and before you know it, you're in dangerous territory. Your mama, your papa, your grandma, whoever, they're all strangers now. There's no emotional room in you to be concerned about strangers. Your hands are full enough trying to keep yourself alive. And that's why I should throw everything else away? Toss it. Cut yourself away from all the baggage you've carried until now. Shion clenched his fists at his sides. He took a step closer to Nezumi. Then what about you? Me? Why did you help me then? I'm just a stranger, but you stepped into dangerous territory to save me. You're not exactly practicing what you preach. Some personality you've got, retorted Nezumi. If you really feel that you've been rescued by me, why don't you try to be a little more modest when you say things? Nezumi's hand extended to grasp Shion's collar. He was pushed against the bookshelf. I owe a debt to you. His low voice hissed at Shion's ear. 4 years ago, you saved my life. I'm paying back that debt. That's all. Then you've paid enough. Too much, even. Shion gripped Nezumi's wrist to pry it away from his collar, but Nezumi's taut muscles showed no signs of relaxing. Let go. Make me, little boy. Oh my god! I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay. I'll bite your nose off. Shion clicked his teeth. There was a split second of hesitation. Shion didn't miss it. He slid a hand around the back of Nezumi's neck. Biting noses off is... Wait, what? Who is speaking right now? Biting noses off is my specialty. Huh? Wait a second. That's dirty. I forgot to mention over these past 4 years, I've also learned how to fight. Hey, knock it off, Nezumi said nervously. Biting is the worst. Whoa! Nezumi lost his footing, and the two fell flailing into the sea of books. Pile after pile toppled over, and books rained down on them from above. Ow! Nezumi grimaced. This is the worst. I think I hit my head on an encyclopedia. Ugh. Shion, you alright? Yeah. What's this? Chumayel's Chilambalam? You know... Okay. It's a Mayan spiritual text. A story about gods and humans. You probably wouldn't be interested in it. Nezumi smiled wanly as he began to stack the fallen books. What's that supposed to mean? It's true, isn't it? Have you ever had any interest in other humans or gods or tales before? Humans? Gods? Tales? He had never thought deeply about any of those. Not once. But that was before. Shion gazed all about him and breathed in the warm scent that filled the air. Here was a world that he didn't know. In the days to come, what would he see, hear, learn, and ponder? His heart raced, but he didn't know why. For a single moment his soul had danced with an anticipation much like the feeling of seeing the ocean for the first time. Then he thought of the look. Nope. Then he thought of the look he must have on his face. He felt embarrassed for letting it show, and not wanting Nezumi to see, he bent down and nonchalantly picked up a book laying at his feet. What's this? A collection of Hesse's poems. I know what that is, of course, Nezumi replied. My soul, you frightened bird, over and over you must ask, when after so many turbulent days comes peace, comes calm? Heard it before? No. I figured as much. Don't ask if you already know, said Shion sourly. It's your job to learn if you don't know. And these aren't useless things? It'll come in handy one day, Nezumi said casually. Anyway, enough of that. The soup's gonna get... Nezumi swallowed his words, his eyes widened. What's wrong, Nezumi? Shion, your hand. Huh? Your hand? When did those spots... Shion's shirt sleeve was rolled halfway up his arm. There were dark spots. There were dark spots that were beginning to spread over its bare skin. They had not been there when he was taking a shower. They had definitely not. What? What is this? He was screaming. At the same time, he felt a vicious pain pierce his head. Shion! The pain came in waves. They receded for a moment, then attacked, bearing ruthlessly down on him. His fingers stiffened. His legs began to convulse. Shion, hang in there. I'll get the doctor. Shion willed his uncooperative body to reach as far as he could. He grabbed a hold of Nezumi by his clothes. There wasn't enough time. It was useless to call a doctor. What should I do? Shion, tell me what? My neck, Shion said weakly. Your neck? The blister. Cut it open. But I don't have any anesthetic. I don't need any, he grimaced. Hurry! He was fading out of consciousness. He could feel his body being lifted. Don't pass out. If you do, you'll never wake up again. He didn't know what made him feel so strongly, but he was almost sure of it. The pain ebbed away for a short while, and an image drifted into his mind of Yamase as he collapsed to the ground and lay still. But Yamase-san didn't suffer. He didn't roll around in pain. He aged instantaneously and passed away like a withering tree. Yamase's symptoms were different from his. Maybe that means I still have a chance. His brain was pierced by smoldering red needles. They were countless and came from all directions. His blood writhed in pain. His body writhed in pain, and he had never experienced before. His own screaming turned into scorching splinters that stabbed through him. He began to sweat profusely. He felt a strong wave of nausea. Blood and stomach fluids welled up inside his mouth and spilled over his lips. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Shion no longer wanted to be saved or to be spared death. He wanted to be released from this pain, this suffering. He didn't need to open his eyes. He didn't need to live. He wasn't asking for much. He just wanted to be released. He felt like someone had grabbed him by the hair from behind and was dragging him into the darkness. He felt relieved. All he had to do was lend himself to it, and he would be taken to a better place. He would finally be able to sleep. A thick, bitter liquid was being poured into his mouth. It was hot. It slid down his throat, and Shion could feel himself rise up out of the darkness. But it also meant that he was being pulled back into the throes of suffering. Keep your eyes open. A pair of gray eyes were peering into his face. Nesumi, I can't take it, Shion implored faintly. Let me go. He was slapped sharply across the face. Don't bullshit me. You're not going anywhere. Drink up. The strong and bitter liquid was forcibly poured into his mouth again. The darkness was lifting. Weak pulses of pain throbbed in his head. Nibble, 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 nibble. Shion thought he heard a sound, or was it a hallucination? It was the sound of his brain being eaten alive. There was a mass of countless black little insects. They crawled all over his brain, making nibbling sounds. Eating, eating, eating. That's disgusting. Was it a Sorry, that was me speaking. Was it a hallucination? Or was it... It hurt terribly. He couldn't bear it, and he was terrified. A scream tore through his throat. That's it. Yell. Don't give up. You're still 16. It's too early to throw in the towel just yet. Shion felt the strength leave his body. He felt heavy, as if he was being tied to a lead weight. He felt suffocated, but the pain had receded just a bit. Keep screaming. Stay conscious. I'm going to cut it open. There was a silver scalpel in Nezumi's hand. I don't have anything fancy like an electronic scalpel, just to let you know. Don't move. Whether it was because half of his nerves had gone numb from severe pain, or because all the strength had left his body, he didn't know, but Shion didn't move a muscle. He couldn't move. There were 3 mice, sitting side by side atop a pile of books. Above them, a round clock was hanging on the wall. It was an analog clock. Tick, tick, tick. He could hear its sound. It was his first time hearing the sounds of time passing by. A second passed, then a minute. Time engraved itself. It passed, gentle, meandering, and vague. The world before him blurred. His cheeks were hot. A tear slid down, touched his lips, and was absorbed, still hot, into the sheets. It's over. Nezumi let out a long breath. It was the metallic clink, the sound of the scalpel hitting the floor. The bleeding isn't too bad. Does it hurt? No, rasped Shion. I just want to go to sleep. Not yet. Hang in there for a little more. Nezumi's voice faded away. Shion could only hear the sound of the clock ticking. Shion? He was being shaken. Keep your eyes open. Just a little more. Please, open your eyes. Shut up, he wanted to say. Shut up, shut up. A little more? How long is a little more? Don't give me this shit. You put me through all this trouble. You can't just go off on your own. Shion, you know what that means? Your mom is gonna cry. What are you gonna do about that girl, huh? Safu, or whatever her name is. Have you ever even slept with a girl before? What a waste it was to turn down that invitation. Shut up. Stop talking. Just stop. You don't know about anything yet. About sex or books or how to fight properly, and you still think you don't need to go on living? Shion, open your eyes. He opened his eyes. He saw 4 pairs of eyes staring back at him. One pair was gray, and they belonged to a human. The other 3 pairs were grape-colored and belonged to the mice. There's a good kid. I'll praise you for that. Nezumi. I didn't get your name. My name? Your real name. Well, there's one more thing you don't know. I'll tell you when you recover completely, and that'll be your get well present. Look forward to it. He was fed the bitter liquid several more times. He drifted off to sleep, only to be awoken up again. Shion felt like he had repeated this countlessly. He broke into a fever. He perspired heavily and vomited again and again. It felt like all the moisture in his body was being wrung out of him. Water, he pleaded repeatedly, and each time a cool draught watered his mouth. It tastes good. Does it? The world's not such a bad place after all. Nezumi's hand slowly caressed Shion's hair. It's all right now. Go to sleep. Can I? Yeah. You're past the worst of it. You've won. That's quite something. The fingers that stroked his hair were gentle, and as was the tone of Nezumi's voice. Relief washed over his body. Shion closed his eyes and dropped off into slumber. That's the end of part A. That was so good. Oh my god. I'm emotional. Oh, I love Heart Comfort. I love Heart Comfort so much. Okay. You know what? Part B, I guess. I guess part B. Let's go. With a hand still laid on his hair, Nezumi was checking Shion's breathing as he slept. It was a little weak but relaxed. It was not erratic. You made it through. It was quite something. He wasn't exaggerating out of politeness or encouragement. Shion housed a lot more vitality than his looks gave away. It was a vitality that was tenacious and strong. Nezumi gazed at Shion's sleeping face, exhausted and weakened, but still breathing regularly nonetheless, and realized how tired he himself was as well. He was mentally, not physically, exhausted. He could neither understand nor come to terms with what he had just experienced. A sense of unease consumed his mind, and made his very blood tingle. What's happening in there? Number 6. Something was beginning to brew in the interiors of what they called the Holy City. Something that exceeded the depths of human imagination was being born, and developing slowly but surely. Nezumi dug into the very back of the shelf and pulled out a petri dish. It contained something he had removed from under Shion's skin when he had cut the blister open. I can't believe this. Yes, unbelievable things happen sometimes. Reality betrayed people almost too easily and yanked people's lives at whim in unexpected directions. At times, it flung them into the depths of despair. It was cruel and violent, absurd even. It couldn't be trusted. Anything could happen at any time. Nezumi knew it well, but he couldn't help being perturbed by this reality. Was it possible for something like this to happen? But the truth was that it had already happened. It was something that couldn't be brushed away, and he couldn't turn a blind eye to it now. Nezumi returned to Shion's bedside. He lightly stroked Shion's hair again. When you wake up, will you be able to believe this reality? Would he be able to handle it? Here was a boy who had been cradled and sheltered in the Holy City's core until the age of 12. Until 16, he lived in Lost Town, the outskirts of the city, but still part of it nevertheless. As a citizen, he was treated as such. Would someone who had been housed in such a protective shell be able to handle reality? Was he strong enough? Probably not weak enough to be crushed, though. But he didn't know. He didn't know how much strength or weakness resided in the boy sleeping before him quietly. Whether he would withstand it or collapse, Nezumi didn't know. But Shion had survived. And that was another reality. To survive, you had to sink your teeth into life and hold fast. No matter if it was unsightly or harsh, those who desired life most greedily were the ones that survived. Nezumi, from experience, was painfully aware of this fact. The boy before him possessed that avarice? Avarice? I don't know. It was far more difficult to survive in an unsightly manner than to die in a beautiful and heroic death. It also held much more value. Of this fact as well, Nezumi was painfully aware. You'll be all right. Nezumi moistened Shion's parched lips and with water. Then he quietly opened the door and slipped outside. Dawn was breaking. The sky was lightened from black to purple, and a sprinkling of stars winked in the sky. Why did I combine twinkle and why do I do that? Okay, it's fine. Number 6. Nezumi addressed the mammoth city, darkly looming in the distance. You just wait. Someday I'll carve out that infection of yours and lay it out in the open. A streak of light shot across the sky. A flock of birds took flight. The sun was rising. Morning was coming. The west block was still thrown in the depths of darkness, but the holy city, bathed in the light of the rising sun, glittered as if to laugh in contempt at it. Nezumi stood still, facing the city in silence. The streets below were brimming with light. He never tired of gazing out of the morning scene from this room. That was how magnificent it was. Exquisite. The orderly streets and the lush colors of the abundant trees that lined them were beautiful. It was a place of full functionality and vigor. Nowhere could one find anything wasteful or ugly. This was a product of human hands, the highest possible. There was a chime. A monitor set into the wall flickered and displayed a long, thin face of a man. Who is this? I need to know what is going on. I don't know. We're just gonna guess. I apologize for disturbing you so early in the morning. No need. I've been waiting for you. The investigation is complete. I would like to report the results to you directly, in person. In person? That's rather cautious of you. Is there something amiss? The suspect has escaped. It seems so, I've heard, but surely that's not of avert importance. He was involved in. He aided in the suspect's escape. The man on the screen pushed his glasses up to his nose. They were rimmed black and visibly old-fashioned. Perhaps he was under the impression that they suited him best, because he had not changed his frame once for the past 10 years. Hang on, reader speaking here. Is this, what's his face? The investigator? Or whatever his face is? And, like, whoever he is? Whoever, quote-unquote, he is? I don't know what's going on. I have no idea whose POV this is in. This is, okay, secrets. Woohoo! I love finding out secrets. Are you sure of that? We've confirmed it. The vocal signatures match. Aiding an escape, huh? And his method? I'll report all the details to you shortly. Understood. I'll be waiting. If you'll excuse me, then. The image disappeared, and the monitor faded back into the wall. The man let his gaze wander around him, then out the custom glass panels of his window to the sky that expanded beyond. It was a deep blue that pierced his eyes. The seasons were taking their course again. So you've come back. What did he return for? Why did he show himself again? A single petal loosened itself from the bunch of roses displayed on his desk and fluttered silently to the floor. You should have stayed quietly where you were, idiot. He crushed the crimson petal with his foot. It smeared on the lush carpet, leaving a stain that reminded him of blood. Okay. Okay, spooky. What's going on? What's going on here? What the hell's going on here? Oh shit, flashback. Yamase was squatting on the floor, hugging his knees, his head bowed. He looked. Or is this a dream? I wonder. He looked like a child sulking after being scolded. Yamase-san, Shion called over to him. There was no answer. Yamase-san, what's wrong? Yeah, there we go. Yamase dissolved into tears. Yamase-san, don't cry. Shion placed his hand on Yamase's shoulder. Yamase's anguished sobbing tore at his heart. It was painful just to listen to him. What's making you cry like this? Is there anything I can do? There is. Yamase's hand grasped Shion's ankle. Shion, I don't want to be alone. Why did you have to get saved? Huh? Come with me, he pleaded. You will, won't you? Yamase-san. What? The hand grasping his ankle changed color. It was beginning to rot. Chunks of flesh decayed and fell away from Yamase's arm. Shion could see his bone peeking through. We'll go together, right? Shion's ankle was being tugged harder. He was being dragged into total darkness. Yamase's arm continued to rot as it grew in length and wound around Shion's torso until it finally reached his neck and began to choke him. No, stop! Shion. Shion reached out as far as he could. He felt something firm and definite. Why is that tripping me up? And closed his hand around it, gripping hard. And he screamed. No! Shion awoke with a start. His throat was painfully dry. Okay, thanks for the barking. No what? Nezumi was peering into his face with a serious expression. Nezumi, Shion murmured dazedly. Oh, I'm alive. You are. Congratulations on your safe return, and I'm sorry for ruining your moment, but can you let go of my hand? You're holding on pretty tight and it hurts. He had been grasping Nezumi's hand so strongly that his fingers were digging into his flesh. He had clung to this hand to escape from the darkness. Want some water? Yeah, Shion said gratefully. The water was cold and quenched every corner of Shion's body. I remember you giving me water like this, again and again. Words formed slowly on Shion's lips, and left them in awkward fragments. There's a spring nearby that's not too bad. It's free, so you don't need to worry. You saved me again. I'm not the one that saved you. There aren't any adequate doctors or medical facilities here anyway, and even if there were, they wouldn't have done any good. No one could have saved you. You brought yourself back. You put up quite a fight. I'm a bit impressed, actually. I promise I won't call you a little boy anymore. It's all thanks to you. Shion brought his hand up to his face to gaze at it. It felt somewhat dry and rough, but there were no spots or wrinkles on it. It was still the same young hand. He breathed a sigh of relief. I had a bad dream, Shion began softly. I wanted someone to help me, and I reached out as far as I could, and I grabbed onto your hand. That frightening, huh? Yamase-san was there. He told me I couldn't be the only one to be saved. His arm was wrapping around me from my torso to my neck. Shion trailed off to feel at his neck. It was wrapped in bandages. From your torso to your neck? Nezumi gave a short intake of breath. He lowered his gaze and moved away from the bed. Yamase-san was never the kind of person to say that, Shion continued reflectively. He would have been happy for me, that I was saved. Why would he come into my dreams and... Because you feel guilty about it, Nezumi said shortly, wrapping the superfiber cloth around his shoulders. A mouse leapt up onto one shoulder from a pile of books. That Yamase guy died and you survived. You're feeling guilty over it. And that's why you're having stupid dreams like that. Everything's stupid or useless to you, isn't it? Whoever lives wins. Don't feel guilty about having survived. If you have time to be feeling guilty, work on living a day longer, a minute longer. And once in a while, remember the ones that died before you. That's good enough. Are you saying that to me? Shion questioned. Who else could I be talking to? It sounded like... Shion hesitated. Almost like you were telling it to yourself. Nezumi blinked. He stared at Shion for a moment, and then muttered, ridiculous, under his breath. Shion tried to lift himself up Shion tried to lift himself up on the bed. He still couldn't move his body as well as he wanted. He noticed that his entire torso was wrapped tightly in bandages. Why are there so many? You were tearing yourself in pain, that's why. Lie down, it's still too early to move around. And take the medicine by your pillow. When I get home, I'll treat you to some soup. You're going out? I have work. Nezumi turned his back to Shion and briskly left the room. Shion swallowed the white pill as he was told to. A brown mouse squeaked at him from beside a glass of water. Thanks. The mouse nodded as if it understood his words of thanks and perched on Shion's chest as he lay back down. What kind of work does your master do? Teep teep. What's his name? What kind of life has he lived until now? Where was he born? And what? He trailed off. He was getting drowsy. It seemed his whole body was in want of a little more quiet rest. Okay. Shion nodded off to sleep. This time, he had no dreams. When he awoke, the heaviness and lethargy in his body had disappeared. He didn't feel any discomfort other than the dull pain from the wound on his neck. His body was recovering quickly. There was no one else in the room. It looked like Nezumi had not returned yet. A dim darkness had settled, and it was quiet. Shion turned his head to see the 3 mice curled up, fast asleep by his neck. He rose quickly and put on his shoes. He wanted badly to catch a breath in the outdoors. He wanted to fill his lungs with fresh air. Shion took several cautious steps. He was sweating underneath the bandages on his neck and chest. He unwound the ones around his neck. Now it was much easier to breathe. His feet were light, and he didn't feel dizzy or nauseous. Shion opened the door and climbed up the stairs. A cold draft of air stung him. The world at ground level was bathed in a reddish light. It was dusk. Colored leaves were falling from the trees. They danced in the wind, and with a dry rustling sound, fluttered to the ground. Looking above, he could see the dark branches of the tree, mostly bare, cast in stark relief against the sky. In the distance, he could see No. 6. Shion felt a hot prickling at the back of his eyes. It wasn't from nostalgia It wasn't from nostalgia for the city where he was born and raised. It was the sights of late autumn, this unremarkable scene that had tugged at his heart, the faint rustling of the fallen leaves, the smell of earth, the color of the sky, all resonated in his heart deeply, as if to coax the tears from him. He'll have another good laugh if he sees me like this. Shion bit his lip to hold back his tears. He inhaled deeply. He heard the sounds of high voices raised in laughter behind him. Shion turned around and saw 3 children among the trees, coming up the slopes toward him. There were 2 girls and 1 boy. Did these children live in the ruined house that he had seen earlier? They all had similar round faces. He didn't know what they were laughing so joyously about, but Shion felt his own feelings lift just watching them. Karan loved children, and always used to hold sales that went by names like half price for children under 10, so the bakery was always filled with the voices of small children. That was inside No. 6. This was outside No. 6. But despite how bizarre the world on this side of the wall was, the sound of children's laughter was still the same. The girl who looked the oldest out of them noticed Shion first. She stopped in her tracks and opened her eyes wide. Her face stiffened. Shion didn't mean to scare her. He raised his hand in greeting and spoke first. Hi there. The small boy standing behind the girl burst into tears. Huh? Oh, don't cry. Shion made to take a step closer. The girl's face contorted. Snake! She shrieked. Hastily scooping up the boy in her arms and taking the other girl by the hand, she clambered back down the slope. Her shriek echoed high into the sunset. Shion stood in stunned silence. Snake? What did she scream for? What snake? He didn't understand the girl's words. What did she see? He turned around. There was nothing save for the scenery of late autumn. There were no snakes or birds. There was no sign of any living thing. Did the shadows of the branches look like a snake to her? No, that girl was looking straight at me. She was looking only at me. Shion shivered. His scalp was tingling. He ran a hand roughly through his bangs and pulled hard. It was a habit of his when he was agitated. What? Shion's breath caught in his throat. There were a few hairs clinging between his fingers. They were an almost transparent shade of white. They caught the light of the setting sun and glimmered. How? What? He raked his head, pulling out more hairs. They were all the same. He felt his face. The skin under his palm was firm. There were no wrinkles or sags, but he felt a strange sensation on his neck. There was a slight swell under his skin that was winding around his neck. Shion half tumbled down the stairs in haste. A mirror. I need a mirror. He knocked over a pile of books. The startled mice darted underneath the bed. He found a wooden door next to the bathroom. He opened it and found a space about big enough for one person to lie down or stand up. The back wall looked like a mirror. There were various things hanging on the other walls, but Shion was in no mood to check. He turned on the light and moved closer to the mirror. His legs quaked. His hands were trembling, but he forced himself to gaze into the mirror. He gave a faint cry of horror. What was he seeing in the mirror? What was this snake? The girl's shriek welled up and echoed in his ear. He needed air, else he felt like he would suffocate. He couldn't breathe. Shion staggered and leaned heavily against the wall. He stared at himself in the mirror. His eyes were glued to it, and they would not move. He couldn't look away. His hair was white and shining, and there was a snake, a red serpent about 2 centimeters wide, was coiled around his neck. That was what it looked like. He had no doubt about it. This can't be. He shed his clothes. He tried to tear off the bandages that wrapped his entire body. They had been wound tightly with care, and they tangled and knotted as if to mock Shion's fumbling hands. When at last the ends of the bandages had fallen away from his body, Shion gave a strangled cry. The crimson band that had risen up on his skin began from his left ankle, coiled up his leg, and extended across his crotch and torso, wound past his armpit and reached up to his neck. It was, literally, like a snake that was strangling him. It was slithering over his naked body, a red meander scar. The strength was leaving his knees. He sank slowly into the unraveled bandages. White hair and a red serpent. This was the price he had paid to survive. Do you enjoy looking at yourself naked? A voice spoke, so low it was almost a whisper. Nezumi was leaning on the door behind him. Nezumi, this... It appears just as your fever went down. The affection is only skin deep. It's not because your veins are engorged, which means there's been no damage to your circulation system. Isn't that nice? Nice? What's nice about this? This is... If you don't like it, you can get rid of it. Nezumi said quietly. Skin grafting is no big feat in this time and age, right? As for your hair, you can dye it another color. I don't see any problem. But just letting you know, he shrugged slightly. We can do something about your hair, but you won't be able to graft your skin here. We don't have the technology or facilities for that. His voice was calm and emotionless, and contained not the smallest hint of sympathy. Shion remained sitting where he was, absent-mindedly gazing at the bandage that was tangled around his leg. Shion. Yeah? Do you regret being alive? It took a moment for Shion to respond. What? He said vaguely. Oh, did you say something? Nezumi sighed and knelt down in front of Shion, hooked a finger on his chin. He forcefully tilted Shion's face up. Stop looking down and look at me. Snap out of your daze and listen to what I'm saying. Are you lamenting it? Lamenting what? Being alive. Lament. You mean like wishing it didn't happen, right? Obviously. No, said Nezumi sarcastically. I was speaking French, like lament for mint. Really? Get a grip on yourself. Has something happened to that gifted brain of yours? Regret. Toward living? Was he lamenting the fact that he was alive and sitting here, looking as he did now? Shion slowly shook his head. No, I'm not. He didn't want to die. Even if he had been struck down, he would have crawled across the ground to stay alive. He had no clear goals or hopes. He had no sight of the future. His body changed startlingly, and his soul was in turmoil, but he still did not want to die. Life was in the delicious taste of the water that quenched his throat. It was in the color of the sky that spread before his eyes, the tranquil evening air, freshly baked bread, and definite is it? Okay, I'm very confused with the pronunciation of this word. I know what it means, but I'm very confused with the pronunciation in this context. The definite sensation of someone's fingers, soft, secretive laughter. Shion, what do you hope for? The unexpected confusion, uncertainty, and hesitation. All these things were connected to being alive. No matter what his appearance became, he didn't want to be cut away from any of these. Nezumi, he whispered. I want to be alive. The tears that he had held back until now gave way. A single droplet spilled over his cheek. He hastily brushed it away. There's no use in hiding it, stupid, sighed Nezumi softly. How can you cry so openly like that? Aren't you embarrassed? I just let my guard down, okay? Said Shion crossly. I'm having trouble controlling myself because I'm not emotionally stable yet. I'm a recovering patient, so stop making fun of me. Nezumi silently gazed at Shion's face, and then reached out to gently grasp at his hair. If it bothers you so much, I'll dye it for you later. But it looks pretty nice on its own. And besides, Nezumi's fingers moved to trace the red scar across Shion's chest. Think about it. You've got a red snake coiled around your body. Quite alluring, I'll say. I'm not flattered at all. Well, I don't enjoy seeing you naked either, Nezumi retorted. Put some clothes back on. I'll treat you to some hot specialty soup and meat. Come to think of it, it had been a long time since he had eaten any food. There was a burning sensation around Shion's stomach as hunger suddenly gnawed at him. What kind of soup? Need any help? Nezumi blinked. You bounce back pretty fast, don't you? Huh? Nezumi's voice suddenly dropped low and hoarse. Round about the cauldron go, in the poison entrails throw, toad that utter cold stone, days and nights, has 31, sweltered venom sleeping got, boil thou first. I the charmed pot. Don't we love Shakespeare? Don't we just love Shakespeare? What's that? Macbeth. The scene where the three witches are brewing newt's eyes, frog feet, and bat wings in the cauldron, making their special soup. Charming, isn't it? If that's our idea of specialty soup, I'll have to say no thanks. Instead of bat wings, we'll use chicken, and instead of newts, we'll toss in lots of fresh vegetables. We'll substitute the frogs for a clove of garlic. Just a moment's wait, Your Majesty. Nezumi's specialty soup was piping hot, and more delicious than anything Shion had ever tasted. End of chapter 4. Ooh, this one was juicy. This one was quite juicy. I like that a lot. Oh, and I'm very happy I could get through the full thing without being interrupted, apart from the dogs barking, but oh, I liked that one. Oh, that was fun. That was fun. How did you like that? I hope you enjoyed that. Wow, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're having a good day, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. But I will be leaving now, so I'll see you in the next chapter. Bye.